Today's session is focused all around how do we make more use of the data that's in MYOB Acumatica. And for many of you, you're probably familiar with general inquiry screens. That's where from sales orders to purchase orders to all throughout the system is sort of does work on the generic inquiry screens, or often referred to as GIs. So today's session is to try and give you some tips and tricks on how to to add in fields or slice and dice things from a generic inquiry screen. So we'll go to the next slide. So basically this webinar, as I say, it's all about the key objectives is about, understanding, the generic inquiry filters and how to filter the data, because it is highly important for you to be able to view data in different lights, and every business that we deal with is totally different. So when we first set up the system, there's a lot of thought that goes into how do we configure and set up the generic inquiries for our clients specific to their needs. But as you start to use that data, the operational side of things is where you start to realize we actually want to filter and look at this data differently. And it could be from a company point of view, but it can also be from a personal point of view as well. So today's session, the team are going to go through sort of giving you the ideas of how you can set up, these generic inquiries. And a lot of this session was sort of built off. We have been getting a lot of clients saying, how do I start filtering and adding more data into my generic inquiry screens through support? So obviously sometimes, if it's quite a complex piece of work that we might need to do, it might be, we might need to build a brand new generic inquiry. But then sometimes it's just showing our clients just those little tips and tricks on how they can do things, and support can handle that. Let's move on to the next slide. So obviously, these sessions we've put together is all for our clients, and it's about trying to offer you guys a little bit more value and be able to engage with us on these calls as well. So today's session, we've got a fair few people on the call. There is the chat or Q&A section. So if you have any questions and you don't want to come off mute and ask those questions, you can put them in the chat and QA. Or if you want to just pause and come off mute and ask a question, you can raise your hand on the Teams chat there. As I say, it's your opportunity. So I do encourage for you guys to stop, pause this, and ask some questions. Your engagement is important. It helps us, sort of tailor maybe the conversation or where we're going. So as I say, I really encourage everyone to come off mute. So go from there. Next slide. For the new people that haven't attended these sessions before, it is about trying to unlock Acumatica. So, we're delving into, into topics that we're seeing as a growing sort of, from our client, our support queue. When we start seeing some trends that are happening, we try and ask that, we try and build these sessions based on some of that information that comes through. But also it's also trends where we see, we're getting a lot of trends from clients asking about how do they, work, how do they get AP automation happening? Or it could be we're getting a lot of queries around time and attendance and rostering and stuff like that. So, we also do bring in our ISVs on a regular basis. So I think last session we had was with ProSpend. We've had Trailed on the call before, WageLock, TimeSite Pro and all that sort of stuff. So, these ISVs are also important to our engagement in these sessions as well. So if anyone has anything that they'd like to see more of, please drop me an email and I'll look at building that into the session as well. Our next session will be not in April because I think of the shortness of April with all the public holidays and probably people taking leave and all that sort of stuff. We are going to postpone until May. Our next session will be May 15. And the session that I'm hoping to put together for that one is to actually showcase one of our applications called AlphaPod, which is a proof of delivery system that we have built from ground up. And some of our clients that are on the call today are already using that as well. We move on to the next screen. Today, obviously I'm your host. So I'm Adam, if you don't know me, if you're on the call and I haven't met you yet. And then you've also got Janella and Mark in our support team. They've put together this session today. And they've been really delving into a lot of the Acumatica university, the open university courses in, learning how to build out more reports and general inquiry screens and all that sort of stuff. So they've been doubling down on building their knowledge in this space. Opportunity today for them to showcase their knowledge to our customers. We move on to the next one. Okay, so the objective today is to help you guys and engage with you guys on these generic inquiries. It's about, how do you retrieve data? So there might be some things on your current GIs that you might need more information on those screens. There's going to be, times where we can help you build out that, the filtering and how that data is presented to you guys efficiently. Both Janella and Mark are actually going to demonstrate in the system on how to do things, a few things, but it's just touching the surface just to give you some ideas of what you can do. It's going to be a practical, walkthrough on how to filter, but we do encourage, as I say, I keep on encouraging everyone, if you do want to come off mute, ask any questions, please do so. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to hand over to Janella now, and she's going to start off the presentation.
All right, thank you for that, Adam. So before we start, how many of you have dealt with GIs for your reports? I believe for our daily tasks, we would usually use GIs, like with our sales orders, invoices, checking on customers. And how many times do you have that struggle in pulling out your data more efficiently? So yeah, you could drop on a message in the chat. So I believe we may have all those struggles, and that is also great that by the end of this session, we would be able to know and apply how these filters could help us be confidently answer our challenges. So yeah. So with the GIs, this allows us to help in narrowing down the data that we have for better analysis and usability. So you could use filters in narrowing your data, both at user level or also in your system level. So sometimes we have this imagination that when you are trying to review your invoices, like for example, last month, how would these filters help you in your data retrieval? So basically, GI filters would help you in your efficiency, accuracy, and customization. So basically, with all these filters that you have, it would help you improve also your performance. So yeah. So sounds good. Now let's try to explore different types of your GI. All right. So with the GI filters, you have three types of GI filters. So you have these row levels, parameters, user-defined filters as well. So with this, I will be going through like a step-by-step process on how we can use your GI filters more effectively. All right. So first off, we have our row level filters. So as you can see on the screen, so you have your sales order on the left hand, that and here. And then when you use your row level filters, you can extract data that would exclude those canceled orders. So the goal for this is that we would like to show sales orders excluding canceled ones. So let's try to go into your GI. Okay. So let's go to your sales orders and let's try, using this row level filter conditioning. So in this one, in the screen, your sales order, let's go on the top right corner, click customization and edit generic inquiry. Just a disclaimer, not all users will have this functionality unless you are administrator or other roles that have the customization functionality. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's click edit generic inquiry. Okay. Let's try refreshing the screen. So what I'm using right now is our demo sandbox that is currently on the 2024.1.202 version. So let's work on this again. So see how it brings you to the generic inquiry screen. So this is how your generic inquiry is displayed. So in here, with the row level filters, let's go on how we would need to set it up. So in the system, basically, if you have data from 2019 or 2018 to the current year, which is now 2025, you might have a lot of data already. And sometimes this causes like your performance issues. So we would recommend that sometimes you need to also set up conditions by setting a date. For example, for this one, we would like to only gather sales orders perhaps from 2021 or 2024 onwards. So we're going to use in here, let's look for the order date in here. And then we would be using a condition. So as I've said earlier, so row level conditions, row level filters, or condition based. Let's use greater than or equal to today's date. Okay. To date perhaps on the 24th, and then let's use January. Right. And afterwards, let's save it. Okay, and then let's click your view inquiry. When you try to add condition filters, always try to test it even before you share it. This is so that you could, be able to give more accurate data to your team. So in here, let's double check. So you have all the dates in there, and then let's try to look at the last one. As you can see, the last date that we have retrieved is from January 2024. So there are many ways on how you could set up conditions as filters within your generic inquiry. So yeah, do you have some perhaps situation where this row level filters could be applicable to you? All right, so we got something in there from
That's from
Brian.
Brian.
Yeah. So what? So he said that he has an Excel-based report that uses a sales order GI. Yeah, it will, because this one for the row level uh, conditions, it filters from the data before it even is showed on the report. So even before you retrieve the data, it's already filtered. So to answer your question, Brian, yes, as long as you set those conditions on the GI directly. Hope that answers your question. Right. Okay, that's great. Okay, so there would be other areas that you could use within your sales order. So you can explore later on how you could use a condition-based row level filters. Okay, so let's move on. Right. That is one example on how you set up row level filters. So next up is using parameter filters. When you say parameter filters, this is somewhat like your question. So you have questions and then you need to input the information on the GI itself. So take for example, in this invoices and memo, you add this type of parameter with a start date and an end date, because our goal is to be able to retrieve data or data within the system from a set of period date range, right? So
And this
you could
is a common one recently we've had asked, you know, from a lot of clients is how do we just have on our GI screens, how do we have like date filters and stuff like that? And obviously there is the ability to, you know, filter out on the date column, but it's sometimes it's a little, if you're not used to filtering stuff, it's a little bit confusing. So we've had a fair few clients asking for this date filter to be added on the top screen. So this is a really good one as well to go through.
Yeah, that's great, Adam. Yep. And also apart from date, you can also explore using even branches as well or customers to be shown on your parameters. So let's dig in to your GIs again. And for this next scenario, we would be using your invoices, right? So one question perhaps that drives into your mind right now is how would I know what field to get or to use as a parameter? So for this example, for the invoices and memo screen for your AR, if you have the customization role, you can just go into the top right, click inspect element, and hover into the field. So it's a customization, inspect element, and hover into the field that you want. So we would like to set up a date range. So after you click that, you can see that the data field is named as doc date. So this is the field that we'll be calling when we set up our filters. All right. So let's go to your invoices and memo GI. So just imagine we will be seeing those parameter date ranges in here. Let's go to your customization, click edit generic inquiry again, and then we will now be in your GI screen for your invoices and memo. So with the parameters, so let's go to the parameters tab, and then let's create a row. So since we will be using start date, so let's put a name as start date. Schema would then be your field. So remember earlier on our invoices and memo, we wanted to get the doc date. So the doc date, and then so how would we like to see the date shown on the GI filter? So for example, for this one, since this is on invoices, it might be relevant if you put invoice start date. We have some clients who have like a customized GIs that have several dates in a report. So we would advise them to put a more relevant naming convention. Like for example, if you have several dates, when you use a parameter, name it correctly or uniquely as well, so that the users who will gain access to it will have an easier way to filter. So on the default value, you can set a default date, or you can just leave this as blank rather. So if this is blank, what the system will show you is the current date, right? Next, then we would like to put in end date. Okay, the date and invoice end date. Okay, then with setting parameters, often this also includes a combination of another filter. And what do you think that might be? So yeah, anyways, with the parameters, you need to set up conditions on how the parameters will work. So with this type, let's add in a filter for your doc date. So let's put in doc date. Date range should be greater than equal to, and then we will be using the value from the parameter that you created, so start date. And here for the operator, let's set it as OR so that it would Also pick up this one, and then let's start date, and then set the condition as empty. Right? So that is for your start date. So we would need also another condition to be set up for your end date. So same field, update, but for the end date, we will be using less than or equal to. And then let's use in here end date. And then same as the one above, let's put in end date is empty. Empty. Right. After that, always save your GI. Right? And then click view. So as this loads, you can see that there in the parameter, since we did not set a default date, what we will be seeing is the current date today. So loading, still loading. All right, so you can see in here that you could see that it's defaulted to today's date. So if we want to retrieve data from last year, so let's just select the 1st of March, then you would now be able to see the date ranges of your invoice. So you could also set up one in here for your customer so that you could just pull like all invoices for your customers as well. So yeah, that's the power of your parameter filters. They are very dynamic and also user-friendly. So do you think there might be chances that how you would like your, just perhaps imagine what other filters that you wanted to, add in here, and then you can try playing around with it. Just don't forget that sometimes when you do set up parameters, you have to always set conditions as well for that on how it would display. All right.
As you can
So
see, Janella gets really excited about all this stuff. So, has anyone got any questions or sort of want to raise anything or share their experience in setting up their own filters? No questions on this one. Cool. All right, let's move ahead.
yeah. So as you can see, I'm really excited with GIs. I've been playing around with many GIs quite recently. So yeah. Anyways, let's move on for our next filters, which are user-defined filters. So many of our users, I believe, are already well familiar with this space. So there are 3 ways where you can use your user-defined filters, which is through quick filters, or you can set up also conditions and also pivots without the need of going into the GI and creating those parameters and conditions, because you can just do that on your screen straight up. All right. So let's try working and checking on quick filters. So let's move on. So quick filters are the filters or this funnel shape icon that you see on top. So in here. So, and then also you could do a quick filter even on the columns that may not be available in here. So there is also a way, for example, you don't like everything to be set up as a quick filter. We could do that as well, but that would be on another scenario. So for this one, this is how you can use your quick filters quite easily. And then you can save it as a default or shared later. So let's see how we can do this in the system. So let's go back into your invoices. So since we already have this, so let's try using your filters, quick filters rather. So what I would like to do is that I would only need to see invoices that I have not released, because there are sometimes some scenarios within our clients that they missed releasing invoices. So yeah, let's try clearing this, and then let's look for um, those balances. So I can put in here, can, where is that balance? So click OK. So by a glance, you can just do it as a quick filtering condition in here. So if you would like to always see it, you can also save this view. So save as, and then balanced. So with this filter setting, you could also share this with your team, or you could just be the one to be able to see it. So let's click OK. So as you can see, you can now see that new tab in there. So yeah, all right. So that's how your quick filter works. Any questions regarding quick filters? Okay, I think silence means yes. We can go to the next slide. All right, so as I've said earlier, there is also a way where you can create filters using conditions, and you don't need to go into the GI to set those. So in here, so you can see the journals. Similar to one common scenario that we have with clients, that sometimes they have created journal entries and they have missed releasing those. So releasing them may mean that some transactions are not posted to the accounts. So you could set up this filter to include all unposted or balanced transactions, so that by the end of the month are you are sure that all journal entries or transactions have been released, or anything that you might have missed during the process. All right. So there is also so that's how you use the conditions. So for this sample that I will be going through is that, let's try to, perhaps I'm a finance manager, and what I wanted is to look at transactions on a daily basis, amounts that are above 20,000. So let's try creating that row condition. So on the top right corner, so here, click the three dots, save as. Oh, here. Click the funnel icon rather, and then let's create a row. So we would like to see an amount. So that is greater than 20 grand. Right. And then let's save it. So invoices greater than 20K. Okay. So as you can see, you also have the capacity to have a look at invoices within amounts that may be greater than, if you always have to look at this type of transactions. So there are many ways you can play around with it. Okay, all right. Any questions regarding the condition row levels on the user screen? Okay, all right. Just feel free to ask questions, and
This is the thing. This is your time for asking any questions, everyone. It's great to hear you guys. If you want to come off mute, you can ask the question and speak to us, engage. Be great. But I do think we've got a question from Brian again.
Can I total the bottom of screen? Oh yeah, you can have a total that you can see in here, but I think that might be on another session that we could discuss with. It's more of the results, because this is something, yeah.
So this is Brian saying that he's not seeing that total on his version.
Right.
That's this version is the new 2024.1 release. So it may be part of an upgrade. Is part of the upgrade, is it, Janelle?
So basically, this is not something that is tied to an upgrade, because you can easily use this or set this up in your results grid. So if you're familiar with the results grid on the generic inquiry, so in here, you could set it in here as a total aggregate function. So perhaps later on our next discussions, we can have a session that would be focused on the results grid, because this is a big, what do you call
Yeah.
this? Training.
Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps we can discuss it on a detailed one later in our
Yeah.
next ones. All right. So yeah, but that's where you do it. All right. Okay, so before I move on to the one of the highlight of the session is that sometimes where we have created sales orders and we would like to know what sales orders did I create for this month. So you could go to this one to the filter, and then so this is a bonus point for you guys. So let's use created by. So most often than not, we would set this one as the salesperson ID and all that, but you can set it in a way that you would put a default to yourself, like you put at and me, so that you can use this create sales orders created, my SO created, if I have one. So I think I didn't have created one, but you could also do that in your invoices as well. In here, I know I created one. So there. So let's put that in here. And then at me, my invoices. There you go. So every time I go to my invoices, I know that I have created this once. All right. Okay. Let's move on to the last type of a user-defined filter. So in your GIs, you have also the ability that you could use pivots as you use filters through a pivot. So something similar with this. So we have some cases at times when, we have to pull reports and get, the details of how much is the total invoices of a supplier with using the pivots. I think this pivots was introduced with release versions above 2021 as per my research. For 2022 version, I believe, where it started, it's just not being quite used often. So yeah. All right, so let's try doing these pivots on your GIs. So for this example, let's use your bills and adjustment. So we have this filter for open invoices. So we would like to bring the total invoices for our suppliers. So let's go on your top right corner, or top right of your bills. So you can click that and you can see that there is a save as pivot over here. So click that. So you can rename it. Click OK. So when you have this one tick, it means that it is shared with your team or whoever has access to this screen. So see this area? This is somehow like your pivot on your Excel sheets. So it saves you the time of exporting the data and then doing pivots outside of the system. So what we would like to use is that pull up suppliers and then the amount. Okay. So there are many ways where you can work on this one, but Mark will put it on more examples later. So yeah, let's put that one gear icon again. And then you can see from here the total invoices per customer. So yeah, there are many ways on how you can do this. I believe this, if you have your payroll reports, these pivots are already available in there. So if you have a payroll report, this is very helpful because every time I do like my reconciliation with payroll stuff, I would use pivots to easily, reconcile amounts and figures when checking employee records. So yeah, right. Have you guys tried using pivots already in your system? Perhaps. All right. Okay. So yeah, pivots do summarize and analyze your data more visually, like, having your giant spreadsheet, so with your GI, and then just summarizing it in a way that it's also easier for your viewing capacity. So
Yep.
yeah. Mhm. Any
And I guess
questions?
I was just going to say this is probably a good point to make. If you are, I've been guilty of it before as well when using Acumatica, is taking things out to Excel because I just know how to do it in Excel. I challenge you, if it's something that you're going to recreate over and over again in Excel, have a chat with the team and see if they can help you build out those pivot tables to give you the relevant information. And I think as a segue into Mark's a little bit later, he will sort of show how, that not only can you create a pivot, but you can also add those pivots to dashboards as well. So yeah, it is handy. And if you're exporting and recreating every month, data from the GI screens, maybe have a look at how these pivots work for you.
Yep.
Cool.
So, all right. So that's about it. So you have your row level parameter filters and user-defined filters that could help you with your data retrieval in MYOB. So I believe you are now excited to go into your GI and then make those filters in. But wait, let's pause there for a while because we would have to look at some tips and tricks or quick reminders before you even touch that mouse and make your magic around your GIs. So first and foremost, we recommend our clients to always make a copy of the GI that you are trying to modify. In this way, you would be able to have a safety net in case something goes wrong, right? Keep your filters simple and avoid using excessive filters. So there might be times like, hey, I wanted to filter my put a condition to my sales orders, and I just want to see this period. But then you already created another condition um, that sets for your parameters. Let's try combining those one and avoid duplicating the same condition over again. As I've said earlier as well, when you do have your parameters, name them clearly on how your users will understand it. So, for example, for dates, specifically put it ordered invoice date, or for your purchases, put purchase order date. And yeah, so even before you try to share it, make some testings, review other relevant data. Are this information that the GI is showing are correct? Okay. All right. And then always save frequently used filters. As Adam said, if you have those pivots already available in your, what you do with your Excel and all that, where you can just save it as a pivot, then you can do that as well. Ensure that your filters do align with your reporting needs. So some you have to discuss with your team how or what type of filters could be helpful to you as well. So yeah. So yeah, this areas where you can gradually work on with your GIs. These tips will help your reports be cleaner and your reports to run faster and more insightful. So before I move on, I think Mark has more in store for you. So I'll hand this over to Mark to work on some sample case scenario. So
We
if
do have
you're,
have
yeah,
a question from Zach. Do you need to specify the row width so that you don't have to change this by dragging it?
yeah, you can do that. Yes, you can do that.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Thanks, Janella. I don't really have anything to show in the PowerPoint, but I want to demonstrate the actual pivot tables in the system. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can you see it?
Yep.
Yep. So, so I'm using a demo tenant for AlphaBiz. So obviously this is my customer's dashboard. So what I'm gonna talk about today is about creating pivot tables so you can get a real-time data into your system and customize reports based on your needs. So today's example would be creating invoice totals by customers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my receivables workspace and create a pivot table from this GI. So this is called GI, invoices and memo. Every time you see a list or like a screen ID with the PL at the end, it's called the GI. And what you can do from the GI is obviously with what Janelle has said, you can create some filters based on your preferences. You can filter statuses, dates, amounts, so on and so forth. But what I'm going to show you today is how to create a pivot tables. So there are actually two ways of doing it. So from this GI, I can click on the customization here and click on the pivot table. And then another thing that you can do is click on the dot, 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 and then save as pivot. So for this example, I want to show you how to create it from the customizations tool here. If you don't have access to customization here, then most likely you don't have a role for it. So it's a security that you're not allowed to do it. It may be because you don't have enough license to access it, or you don't have a role to access it. So if you don't have, then reach out with your administrator or reach out with us, and then we can help you deal with it. All right, so let's create a pivot table from this invoices and memos GI. So this is called a pivot table screen. That is your screen ID. Obviously, there's a box here where you can make it visible in the UI. So if you tick that and save, then you're going to be able to view the pivot and make it shared across all the users who have access to that pivot tables. So this is obviously this is your edit mode. And then later on we'll view it so we can see what we have got. So for example, I actually want to see my list of customers. That's going to be under my row. So row is like, so if I open up, so for some of you that's not familiar with this pivot tables, this is your row. So row one. So obviously that's your row. And then you have your column here. One. So this is your column. This is your row. So that's in Excel. In MYOB Acumatica, you've got the rows here and you've got the columns. So later on, once we view this pivot, I'll show you what the rows are and what are the columns available in the screen. So I actually want to see as well my dates in my column. So it's going to be my customers will be listed here and the dates in here. And then in the right-hand corner, if you click on the field, so this is called the field from here. So these are your available fields from obviously from a generic inquiry, like based on. So like I said, this is your fields from this generic inquiry. So amount, balance, so on and so forth. That's the column available in your invoices and memos GI. So if something's not here, then you would need to edit the generic inquiry before you can add it into the pivot table. Okay, so just going back, in my customer name, I actually want to show my total. So this is my properties if I want to edit something. Say format or width, total level, label if you want. And then if I go into my date, I actually want to round this to quarter. I can do it per month as well. Recently, we've had one of our clients asked for like how do we track customers um, that we are having revenue with on a monthly basis. So this is a good example where they can use pivot tables. So obviously you need to set up as months, and then the format will automatically be set as the year and the month. So if you want to put some caption into it, then you can do so from the total label. Yes, I want to show my total. And then, yeah, so that's my format for my date field. And then I actually want to see the amount in the values section. So if I save that, oh, sorry, I forgot the name. Invoice totals by customers. If I save that, view my pivot, and that's how it's going to look like. So these are your rows where it lists all your customers. And then this is your column, which obviously are the dates. So remember the date, we format that as 2 months. So for 2018, you've got the November, December, for 2019, January, February, so on and so forth. And then if you scroll sideways, you'll see the total on, actually didn't give me the total. Amount, oh, that shows the total. All right, it doesn't look like it just giving me the total. But if I click on the 35K, obviously you can drill down into it, which will give you the total for the 35K. So this one is 35,640, which I think includes GST. If we open that up, so 35,640 is your total. Yes, so that's adding GST. What if I want to see excluding GST? How do I do that? So I just simply go back to my pivot tables and see where my line total is. So obviously there's no line total into the field, which means it's not in here. So I want to add that actually into my inquiry. So I want to go ahead and edit that inquiry. And then just simply add it from the results grid. And I want to name that as line total. I want to give it a space because that looks ugly. Line total. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that. So if I go back and refresh the field, now I have my line total, which is what I want because this amount is giving me GST inclusive. So to remove that, you can hit on X and then just drag it over and then save that. Want to view my pivot again. And there you have it. So that's only 32,400, which gives me a, excluding GST for this customer. So for different customers, you can also drill down into it. So for Adobe Home, obviously you can't see anything from 2018, 19. Others, well, I don't know, there's nothing. Yeah, but there's more into it in the 2020. So that's how creating pivot table is in MYOB Acumatica. If you want to see some other customers, you can then scroll down, and then there's a button here where you can go to the next page. Then you can then next from here as well. Okay, so this is what we're looking for earlier. It gives us the total for each month and each year. If I go back to my pivot table, I actually want to format the, because to me it looks ugly, because I actually want to see the dollar sign in there. So if I just put in the dollar sign, put that as this, and save.
Uh,
I view again, and that's gonna give me the dollar symbol for it, which is good. If there's a decimal point, then you just need to go back to the pivot table and edit that at the end. Then view my pivot. And then you'll have the decimals in there. If you have two more decimals, then you can go back to the pivot tables and edit the properties in here. So yeah, so that's one way of dealing with it. So firstly, you go to the GI and edit it from the pivot tables under customization. And then the other way is doing it from this ellipsis here and save as pivot. So if I just go quickly to my stock items, this is
just pause there for a sec, Mark. We've got a few questions that are banking up. So one was from Brian in regards to the mobile with pivot tables. Are they accessible on mobiles as the mobile app?
I haven't tried, but since this is a GI, you can obviously expose it into the OData. Was it OData? Yeah.
No.
As long as the GI is added to the workspace, to the mobile workspace, you would be able to see those filters.
Yep. As long as it's set up here as well as exposed via OData.
Okay. That was the other question. Could you pull the pivot out via OData to Excel? And then Eric's question, Eric, could you show me the date format again? Show year, month, like 2018. Sure.
Date format again to show year, month. Yes, can do.
Is that the question, Eric? If you want to come off mute.
I think he wants to see it.
Yes, that's the question. Thank you.
So it looks like it's giving us this. Is this what you're asking, Eric? So it gives you the, it's currently month. So you're asking for a date. I think, yes, you can if you change this to days. Yes, you can as well. It just gives you more data into it to scroll sideways. So yeah, from the management perspective, I think what they want would be mostly, well, based on the recent issues that our clients raise, is they're mostly asking about the months. So, but yes, you can do days as well. So just moving on quickly because we're running out of time. Just gonna go to my stock items and show you how to do it in another way. So this is my GI, which gives me the list of my stock items. If I click on the ... save as pivot, you can then create it from here, and then you can obviously share the configuration. Recently, we've had one of our clients ask for how many items are there in an item classes. So I'm gonna name this as items by item classes. I'm gonna share that so I can add it into my dashboard. So what I want here is essentially what I want is an inventory ID in my row. inventory ID as well in my values. Let's see how it looks like. So this is your edit mode once you click on the dot here. And then you can click on the gear icon again just to view the pivot that you're creating. So this is obviously not giving you the item class. So if we go back by clicking on the edit pivot table, you would then need to find the field for item class, which is here. Just adding it there. And then you can see, that looks ugly. Gonna go back and edit and then move this item class actually in on top of my inventory ID. Okay, so if I view it, so there are 4 items in my FSM item class. In my SFM FSM-MC, I have 12. I can expand that so I can see what are the items in there. So if you click on the total, that'll give you the list of the items in that item class, which is really, really good. And then if I go back into my edit view, I actually want to default the item class to not expanding but collapsed. If I view it again, by default, it's all collapsed and not expand. And then from this perspective, I can then expand whatever item class I want to see, which is really good. So the last thing I want to highlight is, so we've created an invoice totals by customers, right? I actually want to add that into my dashboard. So how do I do that? Again, you would need a role for you to be able to do this. You would need a designer role for it. So just click on design and then actually want to add the new widget and a pivot table. So invoices, so you just search for the GI, which is invoices in memo, which is this gives me my PL, so that's it. So since we shared that, did we share that? Oh, let's have a look. Yes, we did. So I'm gonna select that and gonna give it a name as, these are my invoice totals by customers. And then if I hit finish, so that's gonna be your name, your caption is gonna be your name in the dashboard. So if I hit finish, and then remove the edit mode. So in my customers dashboard, obviously I can see this pivot tables that I created. So it's called invoice totals by customers, depending on the caption you want. You can then drill down into it and then decide whether, okay, which are my customers giving me, a huge amount of revenue. And then from there, from that report, I can actually decide. It actually helps you give, real-time data from the management perspective and, help more in a strategic business decisions. So that's pivot tables in MYOB Acumatica, which is really, really powerful. What I've shown you today is just basic of how to do pivot tables, but obviously you can customize it the way you want it based on your requirements. So yeah, do you have any more
Cool.
questions?
Well, yeah, we are a little bit over time, but we still kept everyone on the call, which is great. But if anyone's got any questions or queries they want to come off mute, share anything, please do. Be great to hear from anyone if they've got any further questions.
And by the way, if you need to edit pivot tables, obviously there's security for it. So you would need to go to, so if you go to pivot tables, this is your actual screen where you do it. You need to go to tools, access rights, and see whether a role has access right to it. So in my workspaces, it's under customization and under pivot tables. So these roles, for example, if I'm at, so for my user login, Mark D, I have a role for administrator. Obviously, I can edit that because I have the delete access rights. So that's part of the security for you to be able to edit pivot tables. If you don't have access to it, then probably you are revoked or either not set to it. Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, look, I mean, today was just a basic overview of this, but it just shows that the team have been able to demonstrate, the power that you can do, and this is where you guys can come to us. If it's a simple modification to one of the existing ones that, can be done under the SLA, we can help you out or give you some extra sort of tips and tricks from that as well. If there's like, okay, now this has opened my eye and I want to look at more detail, this is where we can, go into, scoping out what are the actual requirements for those and build them specifically for you. But yeah, I mean, Janella and Mark have been delving into this space a lot deeper to get a bit more understanding on this this process. I think, Brian, you come off mute. You had a question?
Yeah, look, we're all in sales. That pivot table, are we able to create one pivot table but use it on multiple screens? Like, I'm a rep. I want to see what customers have bought in the last 3 months because I've now got a budget. I've got to see what they've bought. Is it able to do one GI and filter it by rep on their dashboard, or do I have to build build one for each rep?
Well, you have to go to a GI called, I think, salesperson by sales. I don't know what that's called, but you just need to go to the GI and then create a pivot table for it. And then based on
could I make one GI pivot and then on the dashboard change the rep so it just shows them theirs, or do I have to build a pivot table per rep to use on their own GIs?
I believe you can filter it.
But you could use the @me as the filter. So then if you create that one pivot table and use the @me, it'll then be specific to the user login.
Yep, correct.
Yep. So I'll share my screen again. So can you see it? Yep. So this is the pivot table in my dashboard. I can then filter and see, for example, I just want to see this right corner customer. For a salesperson perspective, you can filter it as well from here.
Would so the @me would be based on the salesperson because they've got all their customers under them. Yep, gotcha.
A bit over time, but thanks for everyone for sticking around. The next session that we're looking at doing is on the 15th of May. I'm hoping to get one of our developers along to that to demonstrate AlphaPod, which is our proof of delivery system for pickups and for organising your delivery run sheets and then getting digital signatures and how they feed back into MYOB as well. It's a simple program that we've created, but we've got, like Brian from Rise Distribution using it. We've got some other clients that have started using it. It's our own software, which is good because we can control it. And it means that we minimise, having to use external sources. But yeah, no, it's been a good session today, good turnout as well. So do appreciate everyone coming. And if you've got any questions or queries post the event, please put them. You can put them in the chat, and we can come back and answer them. The other thing as well is Kenneth, our marketing guy, will send out a survey post the event. So any feedback or comments or anything you want to see, please put in the feedback form as well. All right, guys, we'll have a good afternoon. Catch ya.
Thank you very much.